Hello everyone and welcome back to AP Bio with AP Playground. Today we're covering topic 8.3, Population Ecology. So goals today, we're describing factors that influence growth dynamics of populations. So we'll be looking at what populations are, we'll be looking at different densities of populations, and we'll be looking at population growth. And our suggested skill is representing and describing data. For A, construct a graph to represent the data, including XY graphs, bar, histogram, line, log scale, dual Y, scatter plot, box and whisker plot, and pie chart. The graph should include the following components: type of graph appropriate for the data, axis labeling, including appropriate units and legend, scaling, accurately plotted data, including error bars when appropriate, and trend line when appropriate. And we will be graphing population growth. So, population is a group of individuals of a single species living in the same general area, and this means they will be interbreeding with each other. And population ecology explores factors that influence the size, density, distribution, and age structure of these populations, and we'll be looking at that here. And the density is the number of individuals per unit of volume. So in a certain space, how many individuals are there? And we see different dispersions. There can be clumped, uniform, or random dispersion. So we'll start with clumped dispersion, and over here you can see in this area all of the individuals are in one specific spot, and this means that they are gathering around one specific resource. For instance, an oasis in the desert, there's not going to be water for a long time and space around it, so all of the individuals are gathered there. Or there's exhibiting herd behavior, so for instance crowding together in order to protect the young. We see uniform dispersion, where everyone is spread out evenly, and there seems to be almost a plan to this. And this means that resources are easy to find, so individuals can be spread out, but it could also mean that individuals are protecting their territory by being at its borders, or having some other sort of cooperative behavior plan. We also see random dispersion, which is where individuals are in no specific spot in particular. They just randomly spread out, and this generally means that they're just following the resources. If a certain plant that a population happens to eat happens to be in these random locations, that's where the individuals of that population are going to be. Some more population demographics include survivorship curves, which show the rate of survival over time, and we have three types here. First of all, type 1 is going to be the long life type, which means that generally there's going to be survival until adulthood, and then when there's a certain age hit, there's going to be a lot of death happening. So for instance, in humans, we're generally going to be able to survive fairly on into age, but then all of a sudden, when we hit this certain age at which our bodies are no longer able to sustain life, then there's going to be decline in the number of survivors at that age. We have type 2, which is going to be a preyed upon type. So it's generally going to be a fairly constant middle line here, where even though the individual can survive into late life, there's also chance for it to be preyed upon at any point during its life. And lastly, we have the type 3, which is the survivor curve, meaning that it's very difficult for the organism to survive at a certain point at the beginning of their life, but once they pass that threshold and are able to then grow into maturity and survive by themselves, then they're going to be surviving for quite a long time. We can also look at age structure pyramids, which are the relative number of individuals of each age in a population. And we see the rate of population growth in relation to births and deaths. And over here we can see rapid growth. There's going to be a lot of people that are young and less people that are going to be older. With no growth, then we kind of see in the middle. Most people are going to be middle-aged, and some are young and some are old. But slow growth also shows we have a moderate amount of youth and moderate amount of middle-aged people and less older people. And what happens when no population growth occurs is eventually the majority of the population is going to be in this upper age echelon. So they're going to be the older people in the population. And that's going to present an issue when there are no youth to take care of them or to continue fulfilling the needs of the society. So now on to population and exponential growth. There's population growth over time, and that's represented by the individuals born minus the individuals that die, usually measured in years. And the population is going to grow when the birth rate is larger than the death rate. If you have more people born, that means your population is growing. And we can see this equation here, dn over dt equals b minus d, where dn is the change in population size and dt is change in time. So change in population size over usually certain number of years is going to be the birth rate minus the death rate. And when we have an ideal situation, ideal conditions with abundant resources, which rarely happens in real life, we see exponential population growth, in which case the population will just continue to grow over time. And as the population gets larger, it will also grow faster because all of these organisms are continuing to multiply. And so we see the population times the maximum growth rate. We look at this equation, dn over dt, again, change in population size over change in time is going to be our growth rate times n, which is our initial population size. And depending on the time, we can go over multiple generations of population growth. So if our initial population is 50 individuals, we have 10 births, 4 deaths, and our rate is going to be 0.12, then we can find our population after 1 generation. We can see our growth. So using our exponential growth equation, we know that our max is going to be 0.12, and because that's our growth rate, and our population is 50 individuals. And multiplying that out gets you 6 individuals. And so we can see that after 1 generation, there will be a 6 individual change in the population size. So there will be 6 individuals added to the population, so we're going to have a population of 56. Now, let's say we didn't know the rate and we needed to calculate the rate. Well, to calculate our population growth, we use our birth rate minus our death rate. And so our birth rate is going to be 10 out of 50. That's how many individuals are being born. And 10 out of 50, 1/5 is 0.20. Death rate is going to be 4 out of 50. That's how many individuals are dying. And that's going to be 0.08. And then if we subtract them, 0.20 minus 0.08, we get 0.12. That's how much our population is growing if we're subtracting our births and our deaths. And so if we also look at it this way, our births minus our deaths, 10 minus 4 is 6. So we have a population change of 6 individuals, and our growth rate is 0.12. So we went over population ecology here. We talked about population, different population demographics, including dispersion, survivorship, and age structure, and population growth represented by birth rate minus death rate, and exponential growth represented by the growth rate times the population. We'll see you in 8.4.